Every great brand starts with a story, and every great photo captures something real. Today on the Palm Beach Current, we're joined by Hannah Lopez, founder of Sunny Studios, who's helping entrepreneurs and creatives define how they show up in the world. We'll talk about branding, the power of photography, and what it means to put yourself out there in business and in love here in Palm Beach County. Thanks for joining us today on the latest episode of the Palm Beach Current. I'm Chris Moody, and today I am joined by Hannah Lopez, who is a woman of many talents, but she'll be talking to us today all about her work in branding, marketing, in terms of photography, and maybe even some personal things. So Hannah, as founder of Sunny Studios, thank you for coming in. We'll jump right in. What is your core philosophy behind your brand?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be on your channel. So I have been in Florida pretty much my whole life. I did spend some time overseas, but I love Florida. I love where we live, and I love the sun. And so when I went through this personal rebrand for my marketing agency after 15 years, I've never been external facing. It's always been word of mouth. It's always been like, oh, I know a girl, or I know that Hannah could do something like this. I wanted to create a really fun brand for myself. And a lot of the agency is rooted in creative collaboration. And so I'm essentially taking creators who are amazing at what they do and bringing them into this family. And Sunny Studios, it's a fun, it kind of feels like this retro California in the 50s and 60s, but definitely Florida vibes. Think like Vans, where you've got the little character and he's just doing a bunch of different stuff out in the sun. And so I wanted to do something different because I feel like marketing agencies, they take themselves too seriously at times, and it doesn't translate to something fun and engaging. So
that's amazing. I mean, it sounds exciting. It sounds very you from how I know you. Well, tell me, what separates a good brand from an unforgettable one? What are you going to do with those types of clients?
Yeah, it's about creating something that people care about. I think that in today's world, we're feeding out so much information to check a box, and the companies that are good or that are okay doing it, they're consistent and they're getting the voice out there and they're talking about their service, but they're not creating something of true value for their audience. So whether it's on social media or it's on their website or it's happening in their stores, I do a lot with food and beverage brands, so restaurants. And it's the ones that make the biggest impact are the ones that really think about, why does this person care? Why should this person care? What does it matter to them? What problem am I solving for this person that I want to come and spend their hard-earned money with my company? And so I think that's the biggest differentiator of the stories we tell and why we need to frame them so that people give a damn. And that's kind of my slogan, is I work with brands that give a damn and really create this story that's empowering and timeless. Because social media, especially, it's just 3 seconds, and you constantly have to get their attention. How can brands position themselves to be a name within that consumer's, mind on a constant level?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, we had a guest previously who talked about his role in media and how things have changed so much in terms of messaging and getting the word out. I'm curious, in that 3 seconds, right? Like, what you see a lot of different things. You watch commercials on TV, you hear ads on the radio, all different things, right? And some are kind of quirky, some are really clever. I mean, what's your take there? What do you think makes a good, what's going to get me to stop and see something in those 3 seconds?
So that's a really good question. And I'm glad we're diving deep into brand because I love it. It's not a one size fits all. You're not the same consumer that I am. We don't have the same values. We don't care about the same things. Like, yes, we're friends and there's a lot of commonality, but brands, they look at a logo, for example, and they're like, okay, this logo, that's my brand. It's the farthest thing from it. So it's really about what's the architecture of the brand? What are the building blocks? That starts at values. Brands have values just like humans have values. What are those values? What are the pillars, the narrative that support the communication of those values? And then how do we create creative that makes sense? And so there's something that I take my clients through, which is a brand archetype exercise. And archetypes are personas. And as humans, we have archetypes. You might be a really funny guy, and you are. So you have a little bit of a joker archetype. There's people that are super serious, that are saviors, the savior archetype. So you think about brands like Progressive Insurance. They take a savior archetype, right? When they're communicating their services. They show someone that's stranded on the side of the road, and then they come and they save them. And so there's dozens of archetypes. There's 12 core, and then there's sub ones. So a brand will usually have a primary archetype and then a secondary. And so companies that are, usually a serious brand, if they put out a commercial that's trying to be funny, it doesn't land because it's them not being authentic. And it's them trying to please everyone. It's them trying to go outside of their brand to be relevant. And consumers, they don't connect. So
interesting. Well,
yeah.
I like the example of Progressive. Like, this is really interesting. What are some other companies that maybe have always stayed within their lane and then they went outside of it and it flopped, right? I mean, because my next question for you, and maybe this ties into it, is what's the biggest mistake companies make when building their marketing strategy? I'm guessing this plays into it a little bit.
Yeah, they dilute their story. They dilute their narrative because I think naturally, especially as founders, especially as business owners, there's so much pressure of people pleasing. And we want to please everyone. And especially with brands that can appeal to the mass market, they try to communicate and build relationships and resonate. They get diluted. And when you get diluted, you get sloppy. And when you get sloppy, nothing lands. So there's this mindset that you have to be posting every single day. You don't, actually. You need to be posting consistently, and you need to have quality content that people care about, that your people care about. So something is an ICP, an ideal customer or client profile. Really narrowing down who is my ideal person that I want to speak to, because you can't be everything to all people, personally and professionally. You can't be all those things. And so really knowing who you are, what's your value prop, why you're different. There's hundreds of water companies out there, but Liquid Death reinvented the way that water was looked at. They saw a space in a very competitive category and really created this story.
Right.
And they became a very successful brand. So they did it right.
Yeah, no, I find so much of this fascinating in terms of how this works, because I think it's easy to pick out the really good brands and it's easy to pick out the ones that land flat, but so much of it is in the middle, right? So many things. I just read this book called Defining Moments. And in that book, I don't know if you've read it, but everything in there, it either, some things jump right off the page because it's something that makes the mark. And then there's other things that make no sense. It just doesn't make sense. Like you said, it gets diluted. And when it gets diluted, you completely forget the message, right? So, I think it's fascinating. Hannah, tell me a little bit more about building something on your own. What was that, speaking of defining moment, but what was that defining moment that made you realize you wanted to build something of your own?
Yeah. So I've always been an entrepreneur. I started washing cars in my dad's neighborhood when I was 14. I even made little flyers on art. Remember the art app on PCs?
Yeah.
I'd get them printed. And I remember my dad, freaking out because I was using external wax on the inside of people's cars. And he was like, you're going to ruin these people's cars. I think it's partially a innate trait that I found out about myself at a very young age. And I think that there's 3 different types of people. There are entrepreneurs, there are managers, and there are, creators. And not everyone's really built to be an entrepreneur. And I think that some people try it and they realize, okay, no, I'd rather just not. So I've always danced with entrepreneurship. There comes a time when you are doing your own thing. So I was doing graphic design. Then I started a beverage company when I was 22. It was like a manufacturing facility. It just blew up into something that I never imagined it would. So up until I was about 26, 27, I joined my first real job as an employee. And I got burnt out at 26 as an entrepreneur. I was like, this is exhausting. I got really sick. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was like just working at both ends of the stick. And I'm like, you know what? Let me pause. Let me just, try something new. There's the other side of it where you don't feel like you're learning a lot from other people because it's kind of lonely in that world. So I joined corporate America, did that for a few years, and then got right back out because, that had an expiration date.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, look, you've done a lot of different things. I mean, you've had these experiences. I mean, that I like to hear when those stories when like you washed cars and started that and then get into this. And you're also a very talented photographer. So what pushed you into that business?
Yeah. Again, I was super young. I was in high school and I picked up a film camera, and my high school had an honors program for art. And I always wanted to be in art. And I started with film, working in the darkroom, processing it, the whole thing. And I was like, this is badass. This is really cool. And so I dragged my friends out of school and start playing with them in, the neighborhoods and stuff and taking pictures. So I've always had a camera in my hand. And as I got older, some clients would be like, hey, I've got this catering flyer. Can you just take a picture of my food? I know you have a nice camera. This is before like the iPhone camera was good enough, right?
Right.
And so I've always dabbled, but never thought that I could make it into a business until I had my daughter. And when I had my daughter in 2020, we all know what happened. The world shut down. I was like, okay, well, now I'm a mom. I'm still working this corporate job, but I need some creative outlet. So I got a mentor, and she's an amazing photographer. I'm like, how are you taking these amazing photos and charging $1,000 per shoot? I'm like, tell me everything. But I invested, and I was like, okay, what I was doing in high school 10 years ago isn't enough right now. And so I invested in my craft. I got the gear. I built the website. I built the social media following. I did 82 free photo shoots my first year of business.
82.
It was 82.
Yeah.
I'll never forget.
That's a lot of time. Because you can imagine shoot is what, 2 hours, an hour to 2 hours?
About an hour. And a lot of those were like mini shoots. They were like 30-minute, 45-minute sessions. But I shouldn't have had to do that many to convince myself that I was good enough to charge what I charge.
Right.
It was a massive imposter syndrome experience for me. And so it took 82 times for me to realize, okay, no, wait, I got this. It's actually something I can do,
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And honestly, I think that type of thinking, it made you realize probably in those 82 times, yeah, it's imposter syndrome, but it's also, 82 times where you're honing your craft, 82 times where you're learning something, 82 times where you're able to tell other clients, hey, I've done this 82 other times, right? So clearly it made an impact. When you're behind the camera, getting away from that imposter syndrome, what are some things that you're looking for that others might miss? What is kind of your secret to success when you're taking pictures?
Yeah, I think people underestimate that having the gear is necessary. I think especially in today's world with the iPhone being so good, and I'm not dissing on the iPhone, there is something to having professional gear. And so investing in that, having a nice lens will really make the difference. And there's some photographers that are like, oh, I had a crappy lens for the first 5 years of business. It depends on how fast you want to grow. I did not want to wait 5 years to get out the quality of work that I put out. So I invested and I made an argument for myself if I'm going to put $10,000 into this gear and all the software and all the things, I'm going to make that back fivefold the first year. You know, we as artists, and I kind of sit on both sides of the brain of entrepreneur and artist, but we don't think about the business side. We don't create business plans. A lot of photographers don't look at it that way. They're just like, I'm passionate and I love it and I want to create art. No, this is a business. I had a business plan. I still have a business plan that I go back to. I have a 1 year and a 3-year plan. It sounds super old school. Anytime I start a business, I will have a business plan.
Right. No, it totally makes sense. And you need to. You know, I like this question that I'm about to ask you because it does appeal to both sides of your brain, right? The artist side and the entrepreneur. But if your personal brand, you know, with your branding business, your photography business, who knows what else Hannah will start soon enough, right?
Yeah.
If your personal brand were a photograph, what would that look like?
I went immediately to Jackson Pollock. I don't know if you're familiar with this artist.
Yes.
You might want to throw, okay. It's a lot of splat.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of colors.
I think that makes sense, right? And I think a lot of people are visual learners and they like to think, you know, hey, what does this look like, right? Sometimes that looks better to somebody than a full bunch of words and a company description or a mission statement. Sometimes people just want to see a picture, right? So I think that makes sense. Clearly, with all the different things that you have going on, you know, you're building brands by day, you're making photography dreams come true, you're doing a number of other things. What about your personal life? What are you hoping to build there?
Yeah, I'm a mom. So first and foremost, she's a huge part of my personal life, and her name's Savannah. But it's an interesting balance because it's not even a balance. I don't even like the word balance because I think that certain seasons of your life require certain things to take precedent. And so right now I'm in this season of building, and work is very much at the forefront. But I also love love, and I'm a romantic, right? And so I am very open and I have a very expansive mindset around it. I'm not bitter around love or anything like that. It's just, you know, it's prioritizing making the time to invest into a relationship. It's, in a way, and this might sound terrible, but it's like starting a business. Do I have the bandwidth right now to start another business? And there's like two sides of the coin because I want that, and I want that partnership and to co-create something with somebody 1000%. And I'm open and ready for that. But I'm not like sitting at a bar waiting for someone. You know what I mean? It's an interesting space.
So Hannah, here's your shot. You've got people listening to this. What kind of energy are you hoping to attract?
Great question. So I think, you know, I've gone through marriage and I've gone through divorce and I've gone through, you know, a lot of different relationships that looked different. And so I've learned what I want, and I want someone curious and expansive and not rigid, someone that's not really set in their ways, someone that understands that we're all evolving in real time. You know, I think that's really at the core, very important. Someone compassionate and kind, I think, is table stakes. I think that one thing that I realized is it's very difficult for me to be in a partnership with someone who has a 9-to-5, who doesn't have a fluid schedule, because I do. And so I work remote. I work from everywhere and anywhere all at once. And that allows for me to also have a adventure part of my life, which is one of my core values. One of my values is like adventure. And if I have my daughter or when I don't have her, I am prioritizing adventure. And so that to me is it kind of narrows the pot.
All right.
A little bit.
Well, there you go. I mean, there's somebody listening to this right now. I want to do a follow-up with the two of you one day. If I'd, I've always found you fascinating. I mean, with all the different things that you do, you're very talented. A couple of questions just to wrap up here, really 3. You know, I ask all my guests, what is your favorite restaurant in the area in Palm Beach County? Where's your go-to place that you would go to if you had one place to eat?
That is a hard question. Can I give you two answers? Because I have two.
Yes, absolutely.
So from a coffee brunch, like breakfast spot, you will always find me at Sunday Motor Club, which is in the new Nora district. I think I was there 4 days last week. It's amazing. It's a vibe. The music's right. The temperature is right. The food's great. I mean, it's just, I could sit there all day, and I do. Dinner, I love Bucan. You might have heard this already. Bucan is great. Yeah, I think that would be those are my top two.
All right, perfect. And then in terms of your favorite, kind of hidden gem, right? So this could be a service provider. It could be a small business. What is a place that you really want to plug in the area, or a person you really want to plug in the area that you really enjoy going to?
It's a great question. That's a very broad question.
Yeah, some people come in with, I've heard doctors, I've heard dentists, I've heard chiropractors, I've heard bookstores, I've heard all pharmacies. So we've had all kinds of different answers here.
Okay. So this is a service provider that is instrumental to my toolbox. Her name is Charisse. I'll follow up with you on her Instagram handle because I don't have it in front of me. She'll come to your house and she does lymphatic drainage massage.
Okay.
And she is game changing. So she's one of my I just need it and I'm stressed, and she'll spend 90 minutes and she's very professional. I love her. I've referred her to many, many people. And then one other place this is in my toolbox. I'm really into peptides and peptide therapy and biohacking. So Androgenics in the North Lake, kind of North Palm Beach area, they do all the peptide therapy and all that fun stuff, IV therapy. So a good friend of mine I went to high school with started it, and he's crushing it. So that's Androgenics in Palm Beach Gardens.
Amazing. Great answers. Last question for you. How can people reach out to you to utilize your branding company, your photography business, or potentially have a date with you, it sounds like?
Okay. Study Studios. I'm on Instagram. I have a website. I'm all over Instagram, so you'll find me.
Okay, perfect. I like it. Make them work for it a little bit to find you. We'll also have all of Hannah's info up on the site as well. But Hannah, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure having you on, and you're welcome anytime here.
Thank you. I'm so excited for you. This is great.
All right. Thanks so much, Hannah.
Good seeing. Bye.